All right, friends, we are back with another dating and relationship periscope. Another dating and relationship periscope. You guys getting ready? You getting ready for this? We got some good stuff going on here. We got some goodies. Got some goodies here. Just making sure this is showing up on Twitter, right? It's showing up on Twitter. You guys are seeing it on Twitter, right? You get the notification. I'm good, Shane. How are you doing? All right. Going into the wine. Going in the wine club. All right. So last time, for those of you, I know not all of you guys check out both periscopes, but I'm not segmenting courses per periscope. So you just got to watch the beginning of every periscope if you want to get the full wine club. You just got to join in the first 5 to 10 minutes of every periscope. So last time we did Red Rioja, we did Rioja Reserva and Rioja Gran Reserva. Now this time we're continuing the theme, or closing it, I suppose, rather, doing a white Rioja, and we're moving over into Catalonia, which will set up our next Periscope's wine topic, which is going to be Priorat. But we're going to be doing today Cava and white Rioja. So to go over here first, let's start with the white Rioja. So remember that Rioja is this little spot right up here. Okay, Rioja is right up here, so north central part of Spain. And remember, it is a valley that is bordered by big mountains that block the Atlantic winds and gradually gets hotter as you go down. Predominantly divided into 3 different sub-appellations. Appalachians, which are not like the mountain range, the Appalachians, but more like the French Appellation. And you have Altavesa, which is in Basque Country, and Baja. So Altavesa and Alta are basically the same in terms of what you're going to be getting. Very, very similar. Both very high altitude. The white that we have today is from a place called Bodegas de la Marquesa. Now, white Rioja is kind of interesting because I mentioned last week that red Rioja has changed over the years. It used to be very, very heavily barrel aged and very, very oaky. Well, what's interesting is that prior to cool fermentation, right, prior to till they were able to do controlled chilled fermentations, the same thing was done for white Rioja. So classic white Rioja is actually very oaky. Now, I don't know how oaky this one is. The main place that still does this traditional style of heavily oaked white Rioja is a place called Lopez de Heredia. It's one of the estates, and they're like the go-to for all very, very elite white Rioja. I didn't get that because it's like pretty expensive, and I'm not even sure if they had it in the store. This was the only white Rioja that they had in the store because white Rioja is not very popular. Ben, fitness is going well. I'm going to be doing a 72-mile trek fasted next week, so I'm getting prepped for that. Doing a lot of long weighted hikes and push-ups, pull-ups, the usual. Feeling pretty good. So, okay, so to continue with this stuff, so white Rioja is not really that big, and so this classical style is not very much represented, even though when it's done well, it can rival like the best of white Bordeaux, like, which is a real big statement because white Bordeaux is really phenomenal stuff. Like, we're talking about stuff from Pessac Léognan and stuff like that. So, okay, most white Rioja today is done in a much more clean, crisp style. It's meant to be just like a very good white table wine. So we're going to try that out. The grape, now one of the reasons I wanted to pair these two together, the Cava and the white Rioja, is because they use the same grape for the most part. The primary grape in white Rioja is Viura, as it's called in Rioja, or otherwise known as Macabayo. And generally with Cava, the main grape is also Macabayo. Now, Cava, in contrast to White Rioja, is near Barcelona. So to show you on the map, so Rioja's here. This is Catalonia area. And this entire area on the coast, this is Cava region. See that dark outline there? I'm pretty sure that is, yeah, that is. Okay, so it says it right here. That is the Cava DO. And also, as you can see, there are parts of other areas of of Spain that also can grow Cava, but 95% is grown right here. Okay, we're going to focus on right here. Now, there's two big producers of Cava. Let me get this stuff going here. Two big producers of Cava, and that's Freixenet and oh god, what is it? Freixenet and, well, I can just look at this page because it's so, it's Cordonio. Freixenet and Cordonio. Then they're two big producers. They've been doing it since the late 1800s. Okay, but I didn't get one of them, and I didn't get one of them because I'm not really satisfied with them usually. My sort of perspective on Cava is that, so Cava is made in the same way as champagne, which is pretty cool, except for the fact that the yields are much higher. Now, you might ask, well, why can't you just keep yields high? Keeping yields high would be really good in wine. The problem is that if you allow there to be too much fruit, the quality of the fruit declines. Okay? With high quality things in wine, marginal territories where it's a little bit of a struggle for the grapes are always better, because that means more of the plant's energy is put into the fruit. And if there's too much of an abundance of sunlight and all the things required to grow, then the quality of the grapes declines, so the wine isn't as good. If you have a really good area like this, a place where the grapes can grow a lot, the only way to improve quality is to restrict yields. Okay, so you have to restrict the yields of it. But the problem is that some producers don't want to do that because they have a quantity over quality mindset, which is a shame for other producers who want to produce really high quality stuff. And this has actually been such a big deal with Cava, because Cava has the potential in a lot of ways to produce wine on par with some champagnes, but it doesn't generally. And it's more like Prosecco because the yields are very high and they abuse the brand name. So it doesn't even matter that they go through this entire special process where they have to have 9 months on lees being the yeast to give it extra flavor. It doesn't matter that they do this entire, special champagne process, because they keep the yields high. Some producers haven't done that, and they're starting to get a new, if they're at a single estate, they're starting to get like a new criteria to try to distinguish themselves. But it's tough. The branding world of wine is tough because you get thrown in with some bad producers and it can affect everybody's brand. So anyway, I picked something from Incito. I would be lying if I said I really knew much about this brand. Yeah, it's always quality over quantity, right? That's how I run my business too. This looks like it's a very small estate though, is my guess. Because it's just a bodega. And moreover, let's look at this thing here. Look at this. Well, first off, it's a reserva, but look at this. Ooh, so it's not a lot of Macabeo, it's a lot of Periada. And why does that matter? It's because Periada is probably the best grape for Cava, but it's harder to grow, and they don't usually grow as much of it. So the proportions on here have been flipped from what they normally are. So this could be a really nice Cava for us. It also has 24 months of bottle aging, so they go above and beyond what's required of them. So anyway, enough talking. Let's try it. Try this stuff out before it gets to, I know, it's on a champagne glass, whatever. We're gonna try to make a comparison. All right, so we're gonna try out usually do the Cavas first. Usually sparkling first. Good Cava. This is a good Cava. Sometimes the Cavas are just such crap. They're just such crap. This one really pops. It really pops. It's very dry. Not like bone dry, but pretty close. a lot of foam. Obviously, it's sparkling, but what I mean is that it really fills your entire mouth up, but there's a little bit of a bite to it, which gives you an idea of the dryness. Flavors, there's a lot of mineral. Like, it kind of almost tastes like if you were going to chew like a multivitamin tablet, you know, one of the chewable multivitamins. You get a lot of that with it. But on the front end, the fruit is like, you get everything from tropical to stone fruit, what would be like peaches. And then it sort of settles down to this sort of mineral taste. Let's try the Rioja. Okay, so we can smell already the oak is coming out here. So this estate, and you know, I suspected it would be at least something like this because it says it's fermented in barrique. It's fermented in barrique, which means that there's some wood on this. This isn't done in the basic stainless steel style. But you can go, when you even get right here, you can smell the oak coming off. Now, I have to reveal my bias. This isn't my favorite kind of style. I mourn the tradition loss in Rioja, but from like a palate standpoint, I understand why it's occurred, because I prefer my wines, my whites in particular, to be clean. But let's try it, because my guess is that you're going to have a lot of this oak, but it's still going to be very clean aside from that. It's not going to be buttery. Like a California Chardonnay would be buttery and oaky. Exactly what we get. There's a little bit of butter here, but this is mostly, what you're mostly getting here is oak. You're mostly getting oak. Now, I have to admit, one of the more difficult things to tell apart in winemaking, because they're usually paired together, is the impact of oak on a white wine and the impact of malolactic fermentation. So just real briefly here, malolactic fermentation is a process where the malic acid, right, which is in apples, it's a very common acid in wine. I'm actually forgetting exactly how they do it, but it's not very complicated. They allow it to, some of this, I think it has to do with the yeast. The malic acid will start to shift into lactic acid. Lactic acid is what you get from milk, right? Also what makes your muscles cramp. But so it actually tastes a little bit buttery when you start to get this malolactic experience. A lot of times they will add this to a wine because it gives it a creamy texture. So, I mean, someone who is a real expert could tell me the degree to which. I'm not really getting a lot of mallow here. What I'm really getting is just the very vanilla, coconutty flavor of oak. And I have to tell you, one of the reasons I don't like it, I mean, this is a good wine, okay? This is a good wine, but it's not my style. Like, would I buy this for pleasure? No, I wouldn't. I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying the difference of the experience. But even as I talk right now, my mouth still fucking tastes like this oak, this coconut. I don't like it. I want it to be crisp and clean. I like the fruit. So anyway, I'm just going to show you one last thing here with the setup. So you can see that this is where Cava is on the coast, right? You can see it's all around Barcelona. You go to Barcelona, you're going to get this stuff, okay? You're going to get all this stuff. Next week, we're going to talk about the reds in this general area. But for now, we will close. By the way, I think I showed you this last time. If you guys want to get one of the newer editions, if you like this stuff, highly recommend this book. I'm a map nerd, so it's kind of perfect for me. And we are going to get into the dating and relationship portion of this Periscope. We got a lot of questions. Try to get to all of them. It might be a while. Gotta say this, it might be a while. When I go on this trek, I'm going to be complete radio silence. And then after that, I'm at 21 Con. Until October. It really could be. It could be. I'm not going to make any promises of trying to squeeze stuff in. We're going to have a ball early next week. And then maybe after my trek, I'll do a dating relationship before 21 Con. But there's a lot of stuff going on. I just gotta, I gotta prioritize the bandwidth. So, first question. I have a question for the masterclass for next Periscope. When making the transition from fun, well, actually, I gotta say this first. I gotta say it first because the question mentioned the masterclass. Question mentioned the masterclass, so I gotta say it. I gotta say something here. Masterclass filming went awesome. Tiger, I don't know if you guys know Tiger Productions, amazing young up and coming videographer. He was doing some work for Goldman. I figured if he's coming out east, let's throw some more stuff on the masterclass. So we added about, I think it's going to come out to a little bit over 5 hours. So we're going to end up with just shy of 20 hours of footage, right? We were in the studio for 9 hours, probably about, I didn't have a lot of like retakes, but because of this stuff, I think I'm getting better at it than I was last time around. Because last time, the first day was like, the whole morning was just me fucking up in front of the camera. We did a lot better this time. But really incredible stuff. I just want to mention it because I know some of you guys got the masterclass. Some of you guys have been thinking about getting it. I recommend you get it now because by November, certainly, that new footage is going to be added into it. Price is going to jump up to $650 from its current $500. All the modules got new material. We got Q&A that was dedicated specifically to stuff in the masterclass to clarify things. So it's going to be different than the Q&As we have here. And we also have, bonus module on business related stuff, or bonus video on business related stuff. And we have a whole new module that's completely dedicated to very advanced stuff and energy. Gets a little bit more esoteric. I know some of you guys love that. That wasn't in the first module, first masterclass. So this version 2.0, I have to say that I can't think of anything. I was talking to Tiger, like there's nothing that we can add to this thing. There's nothing we can add to it until I've got like a couple years under my belt with kids and I can talk about very, very specific things related to kids and fatherhood, which would probably be the topic will be more around fatherhood than even dating in a relationship with kids. But aside from that, there's nothing that wasn't added that could have been added. So good stuff. All right. Anyway, so I have a question. When making the transition from fun player to more of a relationship oriented, but still fun guy, how to keep that desire and keep women around longer, especially 22 to 26 range of girls. Is this something to be worked on, or must you just find the right woman by vetting? Thank you. So there's obviously a portion of this that has to do with vetting because, well, let's be real here. Some women are just not mature enough to get past the honeymoon phase. Like they're just chasing honeymoon phase like a lot of guys are. And so I would not spend your time trying to make it so that, especially if you're trying to be more like relationship, right? If you're going into a relationship with a girl, don't like spend your time trying to focus on how do I make this girl stay in a fantasy state indefinitely. Okay. Cover the stuff in depth in the masterclass, but it's like, this is not the way to a good relationship. I move back. This like sun glare is making me look like some sort of bronze statue. Okay. So point here. Okay, because I'm rereading the question. Player to more of a relationship oriented but still fun guy, how to keep that desire and keep women around longer. I don't think that your objective should be how you can. Let's zoom out here because people get lost in tactics, right? They get lost in, well, I need to do this to keep the girl around. I need to do this to keep a girl around. What you need to do to keep a girl around is to have your shit together and to not be boring, to be fun, and to allow yourself to be lighthearted. It's more of like a deeper attitude shift. Trying to keep the fantasy state around with a girl, you are just not going to be able to do it if you are spending more time with her. And if a girl only wants the fantasy state, then your job is mostly going to be just to screen them out. But generally, if you're playing the game of keeping girls in a fantasy state, you're not looking for a relationship. You're looking to have a harem or play the field. because that's what the objective of that is. Like, okay, I'm going to have a bunch of different girls I'm going to see, and I'm going to not spend enough time with them so that they really feel like they have me, and so that I can stay in this fantasy until the fantasy burns itself out because they want more and you can't give them more. The second you move towards a relationship, that fantasy starts to disappear, basically. And that's okay. It's okay for the fantasy to start to disappear. But anyway, the main thing here is like focus on the fundamentals. Because the reason a lot of guys struggle to keep women around in their mid-20s, aside from not vetting properly, is just because they're either a mess in their personal lives or they're just boring. Like they're not doing fun things. They're not trying to create a compelling, dynamic life. So, next question. What do you think about the general idea of all right, this was mentioned before, and I would I got to just put this in the COVID cabal one because it is not for here, but it doesn't really fit perfectly in that. So hold on 1 second. 1 second. All right. Next question. How and when should the guy bring up controversial topics like politics, gender differences, etc. in the discussion? Well, there's different philosophies on this. It's kind of interesting. One of the big philosophies on this is that you should do it very early to screen the girl out. And I don't think that's a bad idea. I think it just depends on your objectives. If your objective is if your objective is like I need to get a girl to marry, then I wouldn't necessarily bring it up on the first date, but I probably would on the second. And maybe I would on the first. You know, I was never that much in a place where I really felt like I had to just cut to the chase. There are ways to allude to this, by the way, especially if you meet them online. You can have stuff in your profile that indicates it all. But the point is, if you're screening for like a long-term mate, then you want to bring up controversial topics earlier than later because you don't want to waste time on people where the values don't connect. And you'll notice that girls do this sometimes. And I've seen guys bent out of shape about it. Like, oh, well, you know, we have different religions and different cultures and different belief structures. How do I keep her? And she doesn't want to stay with me. How can I keep her in the loop? It's like, well, dude, you got a scarcity mindset because you should be very happy she didn't waste your time. She's probably more mature than you because the fact that she's willing to address that stuff directly. So, you know, how to bring it up. I would not do it in a combative way, but there are certain topics that you can. I mean, I'm not going to give examples for each of these things. Yeah, and I think that Jackson's kind of given a good point here. A lot of them are going to arise naturally. I will say though, there's a difference between marginal things, like marginal beliefs, and really deeper ones. Okay, there's a difference between that. So you and a girl don't have to agree upon everything, and if you have, then you can certainly convert a girl to where your belief on multiple levels, move her into your culture even, if the attraction is strong enough. No question about that. Especially if she doesn't lack a very strong sense of stability in her own background, in her family background. But I don't recommend guys embark on get the ego attitude that they can just take a girl from a completely different culture and completely different belief structure and convert her via attraction. It's a silly thing. The point is just simply that there needs to be some degree of overlap. You need to pace her in some way. So I think a lot of it should just arise naturally in the conversation, and you can be subtle. You don't have to go full blown argument with her to figure it out. You can figure this stuff out pretty implicitly based on how she feels about certain stuff. Like you can make an offhand comment about the masks, and if like today is easy, during a date, you can make some offhand comment about all the masks and fear and stuff, and you could see what she says. And if she starts to get really it's like, well, it's really dangerous, and people need to watch out, and you could express some disagreement. about that or whatever, if your objective is a long-term thing, but without really getting into it, you kind of have your answer. Whereas if she starts to say stuff like, oh, well, she's like, yeah, I know everybody's really freaked out, then you can dig deeper, right? But even that alone gives you a pretty good understanding of where her psychology and where her belief structure is. Okay. My wife and I, both growing up, look at this angle. You guys like this? You really have fun with this stuff. My wife and I, both growing and maturing together, which I think is pretty common in a healthy relationship, as she's the closest person to me. How do I work through deeply personal issues and assert my angers and anxieties while maintaining frame? How do I find the how do I find I'll just try to get this together. Okay, as she's the closest person to me, how do I work through deeply personal issues and assert my angers and anxieties while maintaining frame? How do I know when an issue in the relationship is arising from something with me or something with her? Okay, it's a really good question. Because what happens, another thing, by the way, addressed in the revised masterclass is this kind of nuanced stuff in advanced relationships. Because in an advanced relationship, you're not obsessing upon, am I holding frame, quote unquote. You're being able to share emotions on a much deeper level because the frame has already been built, right? Part of the frame is built from being able to express the emotions. So, but all this said, there is a line that as a guy you have to walk between expressing your emotions and whatever with a girl, with your woman in particular, and not being able to, how do I put this? Like, you're still a man, right? You're still a leader in terms of getting stuff done, and being able to share emotionally things with your woman emotionally does not mean that is your purpose, is to share emotions with her, right? You still are the one who's directing things. And so when you get to these higher levels of relationships, you start to enter into all these different paradoxes, right? So it's a very good question. It's an advanced question. The answer, unfortunately, is so contextual because how do you work through these deeply personal issues and assert angers and anxieties while maintaining frame? I think that, frankly, the answer is you have to do it mostly with your guy friends. Most of the inner and personal work has to be done with yourself, by yourself, with a coach, and with your guy friends. Going to be able to call one of your guy friends and talk about some of this stuff, and for them to give you, from a masculine perspective, be able to hold the space for you, to be able to encourage you, and to not put the heavy lifting on your wife to do that stuff. Like, I think it's very healthy to share your emotions with a woman. I don't think it's very healthy to work through your emotions with a woman. That makes sense? I don't think you should work through your emotions with a woman. I think that you should work through them with a mentor and with your friends. Because when you share it, it's kind of like the problem's been solved or mostly solved, or you're really owning it. But when you're kind of, this is what a lot of new age guys get into the trap with. And I have to walk this line very, they don't usually harass me much anymore, but unsophisticated thinkers can have a hard time with my work because I have to walk this line between, like, yeah, on an advanced level, guys do this stuff, but you can't forget the basics. You can't forget the fundamentals, right? You have to be balanced here. So, so I really think it's just good. The way to do it is to talk it through with someone you trust outside of her, and they will help to give you objective clarity so that you know how to, and if you should, approach it with your wife, at least at that time. Next question. How do you build tension on text, since that's the default mode of conversation right now? Do you escalate the texting to more phone calls if you can't physically meet? I'm not going to answer this in depth because buy my book, Tackling Texting. Okay. Like, I understand some people they got to save it for the masterclass. Tackling Texting is $5. Just like goes through the entire thing, goes through the entire text interaction. So, just get it. It'll answer it better than me. I will just say that the point is not to escalate from texting to phone calls. The point is to escalate from using text to get a girl on a date. That's the primary reason. Frankly, the only real reason. Like, why would you text a girl if the end game is not to get her on a date? Why would you do it? Phone calls are something that is different. And if we're talking about a long distance situation here, okay, fine. But phone calls, look, I gotta say it. Phone calls, I don't like the idea of having long phone calls with girls you haven't met in person. If you really can't meet her in person, then I guess you can do it. But as far as I'm concerned, just let it simmer until you can meet in person. Because one thing to continuing a relationship that you've built or a connection that you built in person over phone is different than trying to build one over phone. I just think it's like a pen pal thing, but it gives away even more because with a pen pal, there's more mystery, right? When you're texting each other, there's more mystery. When you're on the phone, she gets the full. It's very intimate. She gets the full thing. You can have an entire relationship over the phone. I don't like that. I don't like it. I've done long distance relationship, so I know what it's like. When it comes to calling a girl, I do think there's a place for it, but I'm talking like 5 to 10 minute conversations, and they're supposed to be very, very casual. You just basically talk about what you're doing. You shoot the shit. The purpose of this call is to make her feel more connected to you, and to let her feel a sense of your energy. It's not to like have a date over the phone. It's not to have a date over the phone. So yeah, get to tackling texting for the full answer on that question because it goes through the full sequence. But phone calls are just a tool in the repertoire to help build some connection. Look at this. Look at this. Tackling texting is awesome. You guys watching that? You seen that? I'm really proud of it. It's a manual, I think, more than a book. It's on Kindle only as a result. Very big fan of that book. Texting was one of my strong suits. Secrets are all inside there. Okay. 27-year-old male and girl I've been seeing for 8 to 9 months, 31-year-old female, this is an interesting question, okay? So let's take this easy. Have had interesting dreams regarding one another. She had a dream she was in my old apartment and I was having a party. I ditched her for a random blonde girl in a red dress and left her in my room alone. Okay. I'm processing this. I ditched her for a random girl in a red dress and left her in my room alone. On my end, I had 2 dreams. In dream number 1, she was in bed with someone resembling a male friend of hers, but looked much older than he is in real life, like he was in his 60s. They were kissing. In dream 2, she was cuddling with another male friend, unidentifiable. I got really angry at her in the dream and even referenced the previous dream within it. I've heard you say before dreams can often signify unmet needs. What might these dreams say about our dynamic, what we need to work on? In my own introspection, I feel significant anxiety, jealousy surrounding this. One thing to note is she is from India and has only been here about 5 years. There's an understanding between her and her Indian friends that is beyond me. I trust her, but I still have a hard time with this, as with any friendship, there is intimacy. Being from different cultures makes it harder for me to discern boundaries. Okay. I'm not going to be Carl Jung right now, but I think that it's pretty clear that there is a lot of jealousy and unmet communication and insecurity expressed in the relationship about where each of you are. You're worried about her male friends. You feel like you don't have access to her culture, which creates a sense of alienation, which is amplified by the fact that you don't know who these friends are really very well. You don't understand their dynamic. And on her end, there's probably just the simple fact that, I'm making an assumption here, but that she's a relatively cloistered girl, and that she probably doesn't consider herself as beautiful as some other girls you've been with. The fact that she would pick a random blonde girl in a red dress, there's a lot of archetypal significance in that. So my sort of thing here is that, she is, both of your unconscious minds don't fully trust each other. There's not a full trust going on here. One-off dreams, not the biggest deal in the world when it comes to these kind of things. But and I don't want to amplify things that come from the subconscious, because sometimes your mind is just using these things as ways of processing emotions. It's not that they necessarily are like prescient, but or that you need to blow it out of proportion. But it sounds like maybe if you're feeling that jealousy in day to day, then it's very reflective of some sort of trust issues, and I think valuation on both of your ends about how you feel about each other. So that's kind of what I would like, just what I'm kind of glancing on this. I mean, I'd have to ask a lot more questions to get the full context of the relationship. Is it better to turn a woman down early who has hard opinions about patriarchy, like men expecting women to cook and do child rearing more than them, or wait it out to see how you two evolve over time? Okay. Okay. Got some stuff to break here. So, first off, there is a difference between a woman who is like hardcore, fuck the patriarchy. She's wearing like an fuck the patriarchy shirt. She's got that stupid Rosie the Riveter with like fuck men on it. I don't know. Yeah, one of these girls you probably shouldn't date. You probably shouldn't date one of these girls. If that's her obsession, then you probably shouldn't date her. She doesn't like men very much. She's a very unhealthy relationship with men. You're not going to be able to do anything to help salvage it. On the other hand, if you're going into this situation and you're going into the situation and you're saying like, yeah, like I'm going to be the patriarch of my family and I expect the women to cook and do child rearing. Like, you're just asking for a fight. Like, what is the point of this stuff? I mean, I guess some guys will disagree and say this, but my answer to these people is like, do you live in the real world? Are you actually living in the real world? Or did you think that the manosphere is a real place that exists in the real world? Because unless you're in very specific niche communities that have social pressures around this stuff, you're not going to find a lot of women whose way of going on a date, especially in a big city, a big dating area, just not going to find them leading with, hey, I'm looking to cook and raise children. Not going to find it. Doesn't mean that they won't do this stuff. It just means that you are not pacing them in their social programming, which we have to acknowledge. First off. Second off, I also think some of this stuff can get really overrated. I'm not saying that like career woman stuff is good. I'm just saying that you also have to check, like when we start to, these are things that a woman does and can do, right? These are things that a woman does, like cooking and raising children. They're great. You should definitely want a woman who's enthusiastic about doing these things. But what I'm trying to say here is like, be very cautious about the LARP impulse to box women into some sort of just role for them, right? Especially when you haven't really proven anything about yourself. I mean, a woman may be all about doing that stuff when you're successful and you're masculine and you have your shit together and you're fun to be around. Be totally happy to cook and raise children. When you're, some kind of guy who's read too much stuff on Twitter and you're talking about these kind of things, but she doesn't really have any sense of who you are, she can't feel that, the fact that you actually are that man, then she's going to respond differently. So I think it's more important for guys to root out women. I actually saw This is actually funny that you would say this because I was at the beach this past weekend. Most incredible weekend at the beach. I mean, the weather Saturday through Tuesday, like it's like you couldn't get a better heaven. Amazing waves, super warm water, high at 80, 81. Like just absolutely like anyway, an aside, I was just thinking back to yesterday morning when I was surfing for like 45 minutes. I couldn't get out. I made my dad wait on the porch. He was so pissed off. But anyway, it's totally aside. What was I talking about here? What was I even talking about with this stuff? Oh yeah, yeah. Sorry. I saw on the boardwalk Tuesday morning. I saw Mennonite girls. I assume they're Mennonite, not Amish, because they had iPhones. They were taking selfies, but they were in all the traditional dress. My dad and I were like, "What the? Like what? Like never seen anything like this before." So, yeah, there's just this sort of LARPy stuff. I just recommend that I'm not saying that you don't want a feminine woman who's going to care about kids and know how to run a house, but let's just not let's keep an open mind that you I think a lot of guys go into this stuff with like a desire to be rejected, to like prove to themselves that women can't do these things. And also you have to keep in mind if a woman is just going to say this off the bat, um I don't know, like why I don't know. I almost feel like it really depends on the impression you're making on her, what she's willing to say. But I wouldn't go that far. You just need to screen for really big negatives. You want to get rid of women who like don't like men, have no interest in having children or taking care of children, women who are career women. Like you want to get rid of those women. And the other women, you're going to, like a lot of them are going to be fine with that if you bring the right things to the table, or you're going to be fine with them doing something that's not quite exactly that if they bring what you fundamentally want to the table, which is a woman who's going to care for the children. So, I mean, anyway, my 2 cents. Okay, my 2 cents. Next question. Should one ever willingly enter into long distance relationships, especially younger people? Possible exceptions to that if you have any hints. Sure. I think that you can get into a long distance relationship. I don't recommend it, obviously. Why would you recommend a long distance relationship? My only real piece of advice when it comes to this right now, though, I've got a catbird somewhere up here. You can hear him. Stupid yappy sounds. They're pretty funny. Um, Look, when I decided to marry my wife, we moved that fast out of practical considerations. Like I was ready to be exclusive with her, but within 2 months of being exclusive with her, I was like, well, if we're gonna do this, we're going all the way. We're going all the way because it's a waste of our time because we live on different continents. And so we got married because that was the only way to be together. My big issue with long distance relationships is people get into them. I'm really like, listen to this shit. This is really important. The issue with long distance relationships is that people get into them without any vision of where they're going. Okay? They're indefinite. It's like, okay, I'm going to college and I'm going to be there for 4 years, whatever, and we're going to see. No, you're going through a completely different stage of life, and you're holding on to something from the past, and it's a complete waste of your time. Stupid. Stupid. In most cases. I mean, your relationship might be different, but let's be honest, at least 9 out of 10 relationships, between high school and college that you want to stay together, they end, especially when there's a big distance. 9 out of 10. There's always exceptions, 9 out of 10. The big thing for me was that I was more willing to risk getting married to a girl who I had a strong intuitive sense about, but I would have to obviously spend more time with to really fully know. I was more willing to take that risk than I was to sit in an open-ended long-distance relationship, waiting for maybe some sort of work job where she could get a work visa. No. If you want to be together, if you're long distance, you are long distance because of circumstance, and you are doing everything you can to be back together in person. That's it. That is it. If you are long distance and you're doing your entire different lives, I know one very, very glaring exception to this, and nobody in my entire, including them, nobody even understands how it works. They were like long distance for 10 years and they're happily married. Totally bizarre relationship. Aside from that, there's none. There's like, I know of zero that work when your mindset is not. And they were East Asian, so they might have had like some really long-term cultural sort of backing for that. I think it maybe is different in a sort of modern Western context. Really difficult to do that stuff. And so if you're going to be long distance, fine, even if you're younger. But what's the plan? How are you guys planning on building a life together? If there is no specific, like, I'm moving here, you're moving here, you're doing this at this point, if none of that is on the table, you guys are trying to go to the same place, and it's a waste of fucking time. You're just too afraid to break up. That's all that's happening. Too afraid to break up, too afraid to experience where you're at. Long distance relationships out of fear are bad. Long distance relationships out of vision are good. All right. Next question. What is the best way to tell a girl that I expect her to be exclusive to me, but I am not exclusive to her? I can say that sentence clearly, but how to deal with the questions that come up after that statement? I mean, I don't really know. Well, first off, I'm just going to be honest. I know that there are some people who run that kind of game. I mean, the reality is that if you're okay, I'm not going to give you the answer to that question because I'm probably not the best person to ask because I didn't do it. Okay, so you're asking for a way to say that. I know some guys say that kind of stuff. I'm just going to tell you that from the perspective of someone who's dated a lot of different women. If you are really confident, yeah, ask a Tate brother. That's actually really good. The Tates will know how to handle that. I'll just tell you that when I dated these multiple women, it didn't matter at all to me because I knew that the chances of them hooking up with another guy were very small. They were very small because women don't, when they're really into a guy, they don't usually hook up with other people. They don't usually do it. And by acting like it's like you care about it, then you're sub-communicating my perspective. Like, it matters. Like, it didn't matter to me. Because I could also get a sense if she was seeing somebody else, I'd just cut her off, wouldn't have to. And of course, maybe some concealed some stuff, but then I wasn't very close to them. So why would I really care? Right? Why would I really care? So it's just not really like, I didn't care enough about trying to control a woman in that degree because I wasn't planning on getting into a relationship, a committed relationship with a girl. If I was going to do that, then it would have been after a period of time. I would have said, look, I really like you and I'd like to, let's be together, but like, I'm going to still continue to see other girls. And if she said, I'm going to continue to see other boys then, other guys, I'd be like, well, like, you can do that, but then I'm not going to date you anymore. Like, it's cool, I understand, but I'm not going to date you anymore. So I would never be like this kind of, but to me, it was like, I never, there were girls who I'd date and then there were girls who I'd want to commit to. So ask a Tate brother. But it's a different situation, right? It's a different situation. Okay. Research a little on Jung after seeing you mention him. So how does one incorporate their shadow with their persona, specifically the sexual side, which gets repressed, and how to bring that out comfortably? It's a bit of a serious question here. I mean, you incorporate the shadow with. I'm not going to answer it just because I think it's a bit, it's just way too open-ended, I think. How does one incorporate their shadow with their persona? I don't think the question is asked correctly with the terminology here. I think that what he's trying to say basically is, how do you deal with your shadow? Well, you deal with your shadow by bringing things that are repressed in your unconscious mind to your conscious mind, and then learning to express them without shame. Okay, so that's the fundamentals here. Your persona is simply your ability to interface with the world, knowing what face to put forward with the world. Um, so the more you've dealt with your shadow, the more integrated your persona can be, because then you're not using your persona as some sort of fake unconscious projection of your needs. Your persona is simply a tool. But I mean, how to do it, like, everybody has to go through their own work, and it's one of the reasons I do coaching. It's because I do that stuff on my deep dive call with clients, and you can do some of it on your own. It's way faster to do it with a practitioner, way faster, because even if you're ready, you just can't see everything. You miss stuff. So yeah. Okay, this is a fun question. Some of you guys are gonna love this question. You're gonna love it. Okay. What do you think about Gary, the number guy's claim that if one starts a relationship or gets married on a 7-day, it's doomed to fail? Second, do you think there's any validity to numerology? Thanks, Pat. Well, hey guys, I'm still waiting on Gary Grinberg. Look, maybe some of you guys like him. I don't care. I'm just gonna call this out like I see it. I don't begrudge any of you your connections. I'm just gonna say, Gary Grinberg is a convicted felon. Okay, he's a convicted felon, assaulted a police officer, grand larceny. Okay, he's a grifter. Gary Griftberg. Okay, he's a grifter. I think he's got some contacts to the sports gambling world, the underground. He's able to make. I'm not. I mean, I've heard he makes clients money. So cool. He makes clients money. It's not my place to talk about that. There's a million predictions that he's made that are completely wrong. He said that the New World Order was taking over back in March. Okay, if you guys see that, you can check my COVID cabal. He thought that there was going to be complete martial law across the country within a week. Okay, it's a fucking grifter. It's a fucking grifter. Okay, the idea that I don't even know if this is what he means by this, but I don't. I mean, I don't know. I don't know anything about this 7-day stuff. I do think that there is truth in numerology, however, because the universe is math, and there's certainly relevance to certain numerals, 369. Again, this is more of a thing that we talk about in the COVID cabal periscopes, but there is a lot of Cuyahoga County courts. It's easy to find this stuff. I was a private investigator, so I mean, it's you can smell these people pretty quickly. And I don't even have access to the databases I used to, where you could really find everything you needed. So it's kind of funny to see, someone like this try to come at me and try to bury their past. It's I can find it if I want to find it. I do think that there's something to numerology because the universe is math. But and there's a lot of stuff with gematria and the use of numbers and occult symbolism, right? You see 33 used a lot by the cabal. Again, we're not talking about this on this periscope, but I'm just making the point. I do think that numerology there's something legitimate to it, but I mean, I don't think, I don't think he's the guy. Let's put it that way. I don't think he's the guy, but I will say, I have to be honest. I know people who have worked with him, and I know some people who have commented as well that it's kind of like a cult, and that he does have some negative stuff, right? They had some negative experiences, but I have to say this, okay? Because I'm always fair. Even when I don't like somebody, I'm always fair. I haven't heard of any stories of him scamming people who have paid money to him. And a lot of people have made money working with him. So I don't know what to say. If it's certainly true that if Gary were, maybe he's overcharging people, but if he wasn't producing some sort of results, we would have heard about it. So kudos to Gary. I don't like him. I think he's a shyster, but I'm not prepared to call him a scammer. Okay, it's very different. I'm not saying that he's a scammer. I'm just not really sure what he's providing. There could be just tons and tons of confirmation bias for people, and so they think they got their money's worth. It could be that. I don't know. Okay. For this question, I want to use Brian from Family Guy as an example. Brian gets bombshells out on dates, but when he finds out they don't know a thing about anything intellectual, science writing, ideas, etc., he is disappointed and stops seeing her. Could it be that Brian is delusional and will never find a beautiful and feminine girl with this attitude? For me, I found that the prettier and more feminine a woman is, the harder it is to have such conversations. Should I just avoid such topics altogether when talking to a woman? So I've written about this before. Unfortunately, femininity and intellectuality tend to be inversely proportional. Now, I didn't say intelligence, I said intellectuality. Okay, so a lot of women who, it also depends on what you mean by femininity, because there are some women who are very feminine with their roles. So they'll be the ones who take care of the children. They'll be, but in terms of their attitude, they're very argumentative. Good example of this, and this is just purely based on my observation, would be somebody who I have not seen in years, but had a little bit of exposure to them on Twitter about 3 or 4 years ago, which is Vox Day and his wife, right? So they're like super right people who basically they homeschool their kids and they're very dissident. And, he's kind of like a very intellectual programmer, sci-fi type. And she's very also intelligent, intellectual, and they're both like the most argumentative people I've ever met in my life, like ever interacted with. I've never seen people who are more like pedantic, argumentative. I know some of you might like them. I've just personally found them to be like, politics even aside. Like I didn't like their energy very much, but just politics aside, like the argumentativeness of that woman. It's like she spent her entire day trying to find arguments, and he would do the same thing with people. And it's just like, so, but she was very traditional. So she was a very attractive woman. Yeah. Space bunny, very attractive woman. So talked about femininity, it's like there's being anti-feminist, and then there is in ideology, and then there's being anti-feminist in action. Would not necessarily consider Space Bunny to be a clear example of anti-feminist in action, in demeanor at least. So the point of all this stuff is that if you want to argue and you want to talk about intellectual stuff, like get with a dude, do it. Go get with a dude. I'm not saying this to disparage like smart women. I mean, I think it's important to have intelligent conversation with women. Like my wife is very intelligent, and we talk about political stuff and we talk about what's going on. And, to a lesser extent, I can share some nerdy things I come across. She finds some of that stuff interesting. Often it's not her cup of tea. That's fine. I used to care about that stuff a lot more until I stopped, until I like really woke up. The part of me that wanted her to engage in that way was coming from a very like emasculated place. And it's this sort of modern tendency for us to sort of look at our women as like, oh, everything's so platonic and depolarized that they're like our guy friend, but we can fuck them, right? They're going to be everything. I think it's important to be able to have intelligent conversations with a woman. I think it's extremely irrelevant to be able to have like intellectual spurgouts with the woman you're with. And unless you're trying to have some sort of hyper caustic Aaron Sorkin script. I use this example a lot because someone said at one point, and it's just so true, you can't watch an Aaron Sorkin television show without just seeing how ridiculously scripted, like over scripted it is. You know, it's just like so clever. It's like fake. It's just annoying. The cleverness. It's like actually Oscar Wilde's very similar. Like Oscar Wilde's so witty. He has like everything is a witticism. And at first you're like, oh, he's so clever, and then you're kind of like, he's really trying hard. You know, he's really trying hard to sound clever all the time. Yeah, maybe XA said that. I can't remember. I know I didn't come up with that Aaron Sorkin line, but someone did in our corner, and it was. So anyway, yeah, it's just stupid. It's stupid. You have your guy friends for that stuff. Why do you care about talking to your woman about it? Like, you're the one who's supposed to create the new society. Why do you want to talk to her about it? She should support you, but why are you like, I gotta like express my new theory in detail and she needs to argue about it with me? Like, sucks. Sucks. Sucks to have that. Like, talk to your friends about it. They can troubleshoot, they can encourage better. And, you know, spend time with your wife for other things. All right, we got one more question here. We got one last question. Actually, I'm sorry. One of you guys ask a question here. I'm going to answer this really quick. I'm a young man, just moved to a new area. How can I approach dating in a new place with COVID going on? Well, I would suggest first off you do the deep work now, because dating's obviously slowed down. But next year is going to be huge for dating. Huge. I can't emphasize that enough. Next year is a year energetically of rebuilding, whereas this is a year of digestion and processing. But you know, while the weather's still nice, doing cold approach in parks, going online, it's probably the best two options because a lot of the activities are going to be shut down. So I'll do that. There are definitely women who are open right now to meet people. A lot of people are getting stir crazy. Some are neurotic and freaked out. Others are just like losing it. They need to go out and party. They need to have fun. So you want to be screening for those girls that are the latter. Okay. This last question. Hey, Pat. Okay, this is like a little bit of a context thing. So neither of us remember the context here. It's been I get so much stuff. Yeah, Ben, that's it. Go hard in the gym. The work on the body, the work on the mind. It's important. Okay. So this was a question from before. I apologize. Like, I just don't remember. I don't remember. It's just too much. I have too much stuff that comes through. But essentially, I managed to get the girl out after posting a few Insta stories with her hinting that she's single after she was playing coy. First date went really well. Flowing convo, had a few passionate kisses, definite tier 1 dynamics in terms of chemistry and family background, etc. Her backstory is that when she was with a guy 10 years ago, 16 to 26, who cheated on her earlier this year and got a girl pregnant. She's been single 6 months. Things after the first date were good. I'm the first guy she's been on a date with since single. Second date set up, she had to stay late in work, so flake second. Said she'd let me know when free. Had little chats since when she can blow where she blows quite hot cold, but been 2.5 weeks since first date. I know she's obviously got a bit of emotional baggage and probably stalling as hesitant to have something serious after such a long and toxic relationship. My question is this a situation that could still lead to a healthy relationship if it got to that point? P.S. Looking forward to getting the book when it comes out. Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting that book written. Because, guys, I've had a writer's block. I've had a big writer's block. Talked to Paul Publisher about it. Apparently, it's all good. Part of the reason why I'm doing this trek out in nature for a week while I'll be completely off grid. But I know you haven't been getting emails, but unfortunately, there's a big block on the book too. But it's moving. Little by little, it's moving. We're going to get there. Appreciate the support. But yeah, as far as the question here, this is a really good question, actually. I'm going to be honest. I thought this was going to be like a mess because it was too much back context. But I get it. So Can this lead to a healthy relationship? Yeah, it could lead to a healthy relationship. And there's probably connection there and possibility for it. The problem is that she's just not ready. She's just not ready for it. And you can't force that. She needs to spend more time on her own. She needs to spend more time dealing with stuff. And I think you need to give her the space to do that. If I was in your shoes, I would effectively say to her something along the lines of, like, if she keeps like pushing stuff off, I'd say, hey, look, I think you're really great. I enjoyed our first date. I don't really think you're ready right now. I don't really feel like you're ready to date. Or I don't think, probably a better way to put it is like, you could say that, or like, I don't really feel like you're fully invested in this, right? I don't want you to sound too intense, but I want you to give this kind of impression. Don't be too intense about it, but to really just call it the fact that she's just not like ready to move forward with anything. And say, you have my number. Once when you feel whatever, feel free to reach out, and just to let it go. I know that some guys would really think that this like sucks. This is a shitty advice, Pat. Bad advice. Bad advice. You gotta send a dick pic. I'm just like, most people wouldn't say that, but they'd say like, you gotta go like amp up the game. You gotta increase the desire. She doesn't need that. If the connection and chemistry was there, it's nothing to do with desire. It has to do with her comfort. And she doesn't feel ready to be open herself up emotionally to another guy. And maybe she didn't realize that. It's not that she's like bad or whatever. She probably didn't realize it until she started to date. So give her the space. Guys need to be more willing to let women come to them. Stop this like chasing women. Okay, you express your interest. You can pursue. She's not ready. Let her go. Let her come to you. Let her, the fantasy evolve in her mind. You give her space, then she might start to think of you as the guy who got away. Oh, like I blew that with that guy because I was still hung up on this, fuckhead X. It's an abundance play, but abundance plays in the long term always work well. So that's my perspective. I don't think that you should ever go after a girl who's not emotionally available. I think it makes you look desperate. It makes you look like you're trying to convince her to like you. So maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. So what? So what? You got other options out there. All right, my friends, that's it for today. I'll see you next time.